Last week saw 4 days of record temperatures, and this week is expected to be even hotter. We now want to welcome to the program KateCalvin, NASA's chief scientist and senior climate advisor. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm excited to be able to ask you some of these questions that I think a lot of people are wondering this week in particular. Why is the weather so extreme? Can you explain that for non-scientists?
Yeah, so climate change is driving increases in temperature overall. We also have natural cycles that affect temperature, and so the one you're hearing the most about in the news is El Nino or La Nina. So El Nino years tend to be warmer than La Nina. 2022 was a La Nina year. It was actually the warmest La Nina year we've ever had, and it was tied for 5th warmest overall. We're now moving into El Nino. So the combination of climate change and El Nino means we're seeing higher global temperatures, and that brings with it impacts all around the world to people, ecosystems, extreme events, and other changes that are impacting communities.
So ocean temperatures are rising, as I understand it, and that factors into this. Can you explain how?
So oceans absorb a lot of heat, and so we are seeing increases in ocean temperature. When we identify El Nino, it's based on ocean temperatures in a particular part of the Pacific. But the thing to keep in mind is, oceans are actually, land is warming faster than oceans. So the places where we live are warming faster than the ocean. So while we are seeing these increases in ocean temperatures, we're also seeing increases in temperature over land.
So NASA has been doing these reports where you're crunching some of the data to understand how to plan going forward. I was looking at one of them. It says there's going to be severe turbulence with airlines over large regions of the northern hemisphere. Are we already seeing that, and why would that happen?
So we are experiencing impacts of climate change everywhere around the world right now. There's different impacts in different regions. I think what's important to keep in mind is that climate change is more than just temperature. It's also affecting things like the water cycle. So we're seeing more heavy precipitation events, more droughts. We're seeing increases in extreme events like storms, and we can see those, and those impact how we travel, human health, agriculture, and all aspects of our lives.
But with the planes, how certain are you that this will happen, or is it already happening?
So there's studies that indicate that you can see increases in turbulence linked to climate change. At NASA, some of what we do around aircraft, we have a large aeronautics research team, but we look a lot at how transportation affects climate. So not just climate affecting transportation, but also how it affects it. And so we do a lot of research into making planes more efficient so they use less energy and generate less emissions and contribute less to warming in the future.
So there are also transportation issues along the Mississippi River mentioned in the report. Cargo shipments have been impacted by river levels. So how do industries who have to plan ahead and businesses that have to plan ahead take this into account? How prepared are we?
So one of the things that we work on is trying to make sure people have access to the information that can support planning. So for river flow, we actually launched a satellite in December called SWAT that's going to give us the first global survey of water running through rivers and lakes. So we'll be able to see how much water is running through those rivers and how that changes over time. And that kind of information can be used to better plan in the future.
And so NASA would share that?
All of our data is publicly available, and one of the things we're working on now is making it easier to use so that you don't have to process raw satellite data, but instead we give you an indicator that you can interpret and use in your planning. So as an example, we have a tool that's designed for farmers that helps them understand how much water their fields are losing so that they can better plan their irrigation.
NASA also put out a report in May that says climate change is contributing to a rise in Lyme disease, possibly, more mosquito-borne illnesses as well. Seasonal allergies are getting worse. I know plenty of people who are complaining about their allergies these past few weeks. My eyes were watering. How concerned do people need to be?
So there are a lot of effects of climate change on health. In terms of mosquitoes and other diseases that are carried by insects, what climate change can do is change where the geographic extent of those species. So, mosquitoes need hot conditions, they need water to breed. And so what climate change can do is change that extent so that we see in places where you have malaria, it could shift more northern latitudes or higher altitudes. But there's other effects of climate change. You mentioned pollen. One of the things that we saw here in the northeast of the US recently was about wildfire smoke. So there were wildfires burning in Canada, and the smoke from that came into the US and led to air quality concerns all across the northeastern U.S. And we'll see more of that with climate change.
More of these fires.
We'll see more. So what climate change brings is more fire weather. So conditions where it's hot, dry, and windy, more fuel for fires, so more dry vegetation that can burn, and can also lengthen the fire season. So we're seeing all of those changes. What we're trying to do, though, is make sure people can be prepared for it. And so we can see where fires are burning now. We can see burn scars and burn perimeters. We can look at how emissions from fire move around the world.
Well, and that's what's interesting, is that this isn't just admiring the problem. You're coming up with, here's something you can use to plan for this scenario. But some of it sounds like a science fiction movie in terms of fear. There's something in here about frozen Arctic soils unleashing ancient microorganisms. Has that happened yet?
So, in the far north of the world, the soils store a lot of carbon, and there's methane underground. And so, as that thaws, scientists expect that you would see some more emissions associated with it. So that as you warm, you could trigger more emissions, and that's what's driving the warming that we're seeing now is greenhouse gas emissions. So things that affect those emissions will affect climate.
And you're going to continue to make this publicly available?
All of our data is publicly available, and we continue to add to it. So we're able to observe more about the planet and help people better prepare for the future.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
For breaking it down for us non-scientists. Appreciate it.